the Chirp YouTube channel. Today is video number 2 in this process of dealing with an upset child who has autism. Step number 2 in this process is pay attention to the child's sensory signals. Our sensory systems are a huge deal when we are trying to keep ourselves calm and regulated. And for kids with autism, it is much more difficult because their sensory systems are more sensitive. And they tend to have more imbalances in keeping all of those things calm and regulated. It just makes everything more complex. I have lots and lots of videos on sensory topics. I'm going to put a link to a playlist right there that has all my sensory videos in it. I recommend the ones that talk about a bunch, 8 or 9 different sensory elements, one at a time, so that you can watch through those and learn where your particular child or client or student is displaying these symptoms. I have been working in this field for a long time, 20 years, maybe more, and it's easier for me to see now. When I see a kid and he's crashing into the wall, I know that he needs some proprioceptive input. He needs to know where his body is in space. If I see a child who is humming really loudly and covering up his ears, this is probably a signal that there is something going on with the auditory system that we need to pay attention to. Like the classroom is too noisy for him, or our voices are too sharp and we need to tone it all down. Perhaps this child needs a quieter environment than I am currently providing. We need to pay attention to these signals. Because I have done so many videos in the past on this, I'm not going to redo that whole series in this video. What I am going to do is I'm going to give you some quick guides to recognizing sensory behaviors and providing appropriate support if you don't have 20 years of experience in this area. The first one is, where did it go? My first recommendation is understanding your child's sensory signals. This is an amazing book. As you can see, it's pretty short. You're not meant to just read through it. You're meant to go to the beginning and look for the behavior that the child is demonstrating. So for example, let's see if I can find something that kids might have just coming right into a classroom. Let's say a kid comes into our classroom and is just rubbing his hands together like this. Well, I can find out about that on page 18. Page 18 says some sensory explanation of why the child might be doing that, and then a bunch of ideas to help. So as you can see, this is a brilliant book. I honestly think every family should have this in their library, whether you have a kid with autism or not, because my brother and I had all sorts of sensory stuff that we did, and it might have been helpful for my parents to notice that and then provide us with more activities and things to do, not therapy or anything, but just things to do that would help meet those needs that we were displaying. This one is super great. The second one I'm going to recommend is A Buffet of Sensory Interventions. This one has a bunch of information about what sensory processing disorders actually are, and then it has a bunch of information about planning the right interventions, which is really helpful. This one you'll probably have to scan through or read through in advance. You can't just look it up in the index at the beginning the way that you can in that book. This one also has some checklists in the back that are really helpful for assessing which areas might have the most needs in the sensory realm. So this one is also really helpful, and then of course it has ideas inside for in this case what tactile hyposensitivity might look like, and then some things to do with a child who might have that kind of a sensory system. It isn't going to be a perfectly easy process because our sensory systems are really, really complex. And so if you are working in a school, I recommend that you get your occupational therapist, who is a specialist in sensory integrations, to come teach you more. You will naturally learn from these professionals over time. But if you are new to your field or the field of special ed, if you're a parent, learn as much as you can and then learn from experience around you. If you are the leader of some kind of a team or ministry and you don't have experience in this area, please get yourself trained. Watch as many videos as you can, read as many books as you can, especially these. And there's also one more that I recommend that is called Sensory Processing 101. This one is more of a sort of, it gives you a lot of information and then kind of has a little checklist, and then it just gives you activities. So here are some auditory activities, and there are a bunch of those. And then there are proprioceptive activities, and then, so basically you have to assess the child first, and then go to the chapter on that particular sensory issue and pick out some activities that might help. Which is great if you know the child in advance and if you have these activities in your classroom or in your home that you can sort of whip out when the need arises. But it's not so great for just meeting a child and not knowing the child and trying to help the child calm down. That does require a little bit of experience. So, as I mentioned, train yourself, get professionals to work with you wherever possible, and keep learning because we all have stuff that we still need to learn. Step number 1 in this calming an upset child with autism was listen to the nonverbal communication and meet whatever needs that you can. And step number 2 is address the sensory needs that the child is communicating to you. I'll see you back here next week for step number 3. I hope you're having a great week. See you soon.